and we're going to consider the Earth a drop of water, right? We're mostly dust and water spinning around on this planet. Elias has this prism, and he's going to rotate that prism in an angle with a light that shows the rainbow. Well, let's see if we can get a picture of that rainbow. Oh, there, move down here. Let's keep it in one place, okay, Elias, for a second? So, the Earth is like a prism with the light, so at a certain angle, right, if Elias rotates the prism, we won't see the prism, right? The rainbow goes away. But then when we rotate it another way and get that perfect angle, which for the Earth is at sunrise and sunset, we start seeing the rainbow that we're living in. Okay, everybody, here we have, you probably recognize this piece. It's Monet's Haystacks, a very famous piece. And I'm just going to show you how he is breaking up the space here using the idea of the rainbow that we've been discussing, starting from the bottom. From the bottom down here, you'll have more of the reds that are very close to you, and then you're going to have the violets, and it's going into that deep blue space, right, as the spectrum is split, and the blue and violet are in the center. The red's down here, right? Red, yellow, red, orange, yellow, violet, blue, and then sharper blue. It might even go to violet again at the top. As the sky keeps going, it'll get darker and darker and to violet again, creating this loop of light. So if we blur the foreground, right, we get this more, you see this more general tone, right? And then if we keep going and we create a tone, you'll see this red tone in the foreground. And then this slightly paler tone, still has red, but slightly paler, slightly more violet, more blue, right? And in the foreground, you have that bright orange that's nice and bright. So you have this spectrum of the red to yellow to violet going on within these subtle muted tones. And then the sky comes down with the blue. So if we blur the sky, that almost looks like a realistic sky. And we'll make that a solid general blue, right, that he might start out with painting. And then that blue comes down and starts mixing into the reds, right? So this, you get a more violet here, right? You see that blue from up here comes down into the red level, starts turning violet, and then you're coming across the ground, right? And you're coming into the red light, but you do have this sky of the blue sky kind of reflecting down onto this, into the distance, and you're still going into the water. And then this is coming closer and closer with the red part of the spectrum. You can really see a very stark difference if you go ahead and you blur. If you blur these guys, right, you get this general tone of warm. You can see this warm red in here, and this cooler, more violet as it falls back into the water, into those ultraviolet lights. And then again, if we really generalize it, you can really see the stark difference. And you want to think this way. Let's look at this alone. There we go. You really want to think this way in big masses of color when you start, and just getting the tones right, of getting this feeling of space, right? He would probably start with something like this, and it's called massing. So you just get that, the general colors and the difference between this to this to this happening and then you start working into the details. Let me show you the piece again so you can see how that is broken up. And there it is, right, in all its glory with all the little details, but still that very simple, those simple tones going from the warms and the yellows and the reds and the foregrounds and the oranges passing into that blue violet into the blue and to the far distance. Okay, so this is Titian. Well, excuse the karate class going on in the background. It's our new homeschooling reality. Sure everyone's enjoying. But this is Titian, and you can see how he's broken it up into this blue, then violet, then you have the browns and the yellows and essentially the reds in the foreground. He would have a red ground underneath it, like working on a piece of red paper or canvas. But if we up the contrast, we really see see that difference, right? So if I just took a brush, and I took this blue, right? Let's really color it in. Right, so we see that general tone to this more rich violet, right? And you have this pink that's hitting it right here from the left, right? General. And then in the foreground, you have this very red. General tone. Right? Okay, we also have the Madonna here. Again, I'm just going to add a layer and show you these. It's beautiful, right? From this blue to this violet or blue violet, right? Oh, and then it's going to get richer and warmer here, right? Deep in the shadow. That's still cool. That's still a violet, right? And then to this foreground where you're going to start getting these yellows, right? Right? Up to these reds. Right? So when we're first starting out, we don't want to get into all the details. We just want to lay out that world. We want to create the world and then put the characters in it. You know, is it a rainy day? Is it a sunny day? Is it nighttime? Is it sunset? You know, is it sunrise? And those all, as you go, will have a different color set. Sunrises are usually cooler than sunsets. Not always, but usually. this is the landscape we're going to paint today. It is a scene from Burger Hill in Rhinebeck, New York. I just did this painting plein air outside, and I'm going to do it on my desk for you in a moment. As you can see, it has a nice distance back here through the watery atmosphere. So to simplify it, right, let's start from scratch. We're going to start with a red wash on the bottom, working from I say red even when it's pink. Okay, so it's just within the red waves. So this pink red here. And then we're going to come down with a blue wash, a blue gradient from the sky from above, right, which mixes and creates a violet in between. And then we're going to put the yellow down the center somewhere. I'm putting it low, maybe at the third mark, because that's where I want the light of the sun, where the yellow light of the sun is. And this is not as a traditional rainbow as in the colors being super rich, although I can adjust the colors. We see a sharper rainbow, right? There's that rainbow. But when we're seeing it, we're in it, so it's spread out and dispersed, and it looks more like this, right? That's just the split light that we're in. And then as the different layers, the background up to the foreground, you see this background here is very blue. And then underneath here, you'll see this red violet. And then in the foreground, there's an orange or a pink and some yellows and more orangey yellows up here. As it comes closer, you'll feel those reds, whereas in the distance, what you have in here is the blue field of light, the blue and then the violet and then the red. So it'll start with, right, making these gradients, and then we're going to put that blue distance in, and then we're going to put that violet in the middle, and then that violet is going to turn to what I'd call red. Of course, it looks a little bit brown or this kind of plum color. And then up front you have the oranges, the yellows. And you can see how simply, if we just have this blue to violet to red to yellow, orange, red, that we already feel this distance, right? So I'll take those all apart, and you can see the rainbow. You can see how it plays in. Okay, let's get started.